Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. It's just 5 minutes after 8 o'clock and time now for the Kickstarter, where we are looking at the National Resistance Movement Central Executive Committee and the run-up to Thursday, when the climax of what is one of the most followed political stories in the land right now will end with the elections there of key positions, including one that has become a battle of the titans, Rebecca Kadaga against Anita Among. What happened during the meeting at State House, very widely publicized, of course, demonstrated a contest that is on our hands, and indeed on the hands of the National Resistance Movement. This morning, we are going to put perspective to all those aspects with insight from my very good panel this morning. I have with me retired Major Paula Awich. He's Director of External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement. We're also joined by Jonah Byakutaga Akiki. He's an aspirant for the Hoima City seat on the NRM ticket. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us here on Morning at NTV. It's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Chris.
Great. Later on, we shall be joined by Jonan Asimwe Akiki. He's a SEC aspirant for National Vice Chairperson, Western Region. Today, we have Akikis on board. Interesting there. Let's begin with the new gentleman on Morning at NTV. Major has been around here for a while. First, bring us up to speed with how the political landscape is. I would be remiss if I don't give you the opportunity to do a more detailed introduction of yourself.
Oh, well, thank you, first of all, for having me this morning. And I'm saying it's my first time in the NTV studio, considering I've been 15 years in the media and never stepped in this studio. But that shows a sign of loyalty, because I was with Next Media, with NBS. I've been a sports journalist for quite a number of years. And I've taken the dip now into politics. This is my second attempt. I did contest 5 years ago for the very same seat in Hoima East. And coincidentally, our third guest today, Honorable Engineer Jonad, defeated me in the primary 5 years ago.
Interesting.
So this time he chose to go for the SEC position, and it made it much easier for me to retain the flag this time around. So I'm looking forward to making my own contribution. I think it's we speak about a transition over and over. It's the word that keeps going around in the political circles, and so it's encouraging to see younger people of our generation mentored by these seniors for us to now come and play our small part as well.
No doubt. Many thanks for that. Retired Major, looking at the last 4 days and what has transpired is something that has set the stage for drama, political contestation that perhaps we haven't seen before, especially within the governing party's higher echelons. You've been following this very closely. I'll be asking you the deep questions a little bit later. I want to know, does the NRM look good right now, given what many might say as the washing of dirty linen in the full glare of the public?
Thank you so much. Of course, as you said, I'm a regular here, so many viewers know me. My name is Major Awich, retired Major. I'm the Director for External Affairs for the mighty NRM. I was a little puzzled by his introduction. He skipped something which I thought would have appeared in his mind. Because this young man is my OB of Ontari School. So I'm surprised that he couldn't say, I'm happy to be with this senior OB. I'm surprised that he couldn't say, I'm happy to be with this senior OB.
Maybe he didn't know.
No, I'm sure just having the conversation.
So he should have known. So I'm happy to meet the young OB, because as you know, we meant a lot of our young old boys and also young cadres.
That's right.
So I'm happy to meet him. Now, your question really needs a round-up answer, and I will go specific for that. Your question was, does NRM look good?
To you right now?
Well, to me, NRM looks good. And as you said, you'll ask the details later. NRM looks good because we are witnessing the normal inherent contradictions that exist in an organization, in a society. And we all know that those contradictions, unless they're very major, they cannot derail or destroy a system. And we also know that what is important about this kind of contradictions that appears to the public is that once resolved, an organization or a party moves to a higher qualitative level. So the way and the manner those contradictions are handled determines where we move next. And I'm sure it is going to be handled and we shall move next. Because fairly, if you look at how good or bad or how dangerous position we are in, a simple yardstick is we have already gone inside the election by electing special interest groups in the Biabakam election. That is the youth, the women, the what. Remember that the structure of that election is that, take for example the youth, those who are elected from the village form the parish. Those who are elected from the parish form the sub-county. Those are, and so on and so forth. So right now, of those interest groups, we have won all by 90%. Meaning, as we talk now, NRM has 5 MPs before we even vote. So that indicator alone should show you that we are good. And by that indicator, because the youth have voted from the village, the women have voted from the village.
That is right.
It means, therefore, if you can take a sample and take 90% of this sample, then we are good. Then these are the contradictions that appear to attract attention. As I said earlier, the way it is resolved, the party moves to a higher qualitative leap.
Okay. I'm glad Major talked about the youth elections that were held under the Kadaga Electoral Commission, rather, how it puts the NRM way ahead of other political actors even before the general election comes through. But I want you to juxtapose that with sentiment that rang out, especially during that confrontation between Anita Among and Rebecca Kadaga. And I will paraphrase Rebecca Kadaga's words. She said that she's an old guard, she's a senior, and was wondering why newcomers have to be elevated ahead of the senior cadres. As a young political actor within the national resistance movement, those words ought to have sent a chill down your spine, because the message was clear that until the seniors are comfortable with exit, will the young people have to jostle for space. What do you make of it?
Well, Chris, starting with what my senior Obi said, I don't think this process made NRM look any shabby, like has been portrayed in the media.
Okay.
The difference is I'm a journalist and I appreciate what media does. Our NEC, because I was there on Saturday, our NEC was broadcast live in real time on
That's
TV.
right, yeah.
I haven't seen any of the other political parties do that. If we had a live camera at the DP Delegates Conference or NUP or UPC, we would see similar conversations, perhaps. We would probably sit down here and say, oh, did you see the confusion? Did you see the disagreements? So it was very healthy debate, maybe strong words, but fair words on both sides from both candidates. So the difference is it was broadcast to the media, but there was nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's a sign of actual democracy, that you're being asked to present yourself in front of the delegates, in front of the National Executive Council and prove your case. So the words that you're talking about that are attributed to both sides, to be fair, I think you've got to have a bit of introspection and understand where each candidate is coming from. The Right Honorable Kadaga is talking about seniority, and I think she referenced the position of the first national vice chairperson, who she suggested has gotten some kind of protection, and like her case, and she could have an argument. But I've said this over and over, as a young party leader, aspiring party leader, we want a strong party. This party, we have to think longevity. We can't be thinking about these next 5 years of elections. We've got to be thinking about 20 years from now. Will the NRM still be in existence? How will the NRM be operating? So there's a role to play for the senior leaders. There's a role to play for the younger leaders, us who are coming through. The Right Honorable Kadaga has served the party since 1989. And you cannot deny or discredit her service. You'd be mad if you did that. The Right Honorable Anita Among, yes, I think they pointed out 3 years of service to the NRM as it is right now, or maybe 4, but her impact is visible as well. And she cited the number of MPs she's managed to pull over from the opposition. She spoke about the mobilization of resources for the party. All that is work that she has done. For me, and I'm not the president, but if I had a chance to advise the president, my advice would be, we need both ladies. These ladies are very powerful and influential. The party still needs both of them. Still needs Right Honorable Kadaga and needs Right Honorable Anita Among. Now the question is, and the president put it to the conference, to the council, and he said, I have opted to nominate one of them onto the SEC. Can one of them stand down? I understand they're competing, so none of them will be able to stand down. 2010, 15 years ago, we went for the Secretary General race at Nambole at the time. The Right Honorable Mama Mbabazi against the retired Major General Kahindo Tafire and Professor Gilbert Bukenya. And the president tried to find some kind of harmony between the three for them to stand down for one person. I believe his preference was the Right Honorable Mama Mbabazi at the time. Both parties rejected his proposal. In fact, Professor Bukenya was even guided to contest for the vice presidency of Central Region, which eventually went to Honorable Naduli. And Professor Bukenya turned it down. Eventually, the president said, mine is to advise. If the candidates do not heed my advice, they go out and contest. And that's what, as NEC, we passed. The resolution that was adopted was both candidates will proceed to Thursday. Again, if I were the president, I would try to find a solution between the two of them. Maybe between now and Thursday, there could be some kind of negotiation. For NEC, our part is done now. The names have been forwarded to the conference, the delegates conference, or when we get to vote later this week, there's nothing that can be changed. The only thing that can happen between now and then is one of the candidates stepping down and saying, you know what, okay, after consultations, I've decided to move aside. And maybe for Major Awich, the retired Major Awich here, who's my senior, as a party, maybe it's also time for us to start thinking about a few reforms in the SEC, in the NEC, as a party. There have got to be some changes that have to be made. Parties evolve. I mean, this party is evolving, and we're talking about transitioning in terms of leadership and younger leaders coming. Things have got to change a bit. Perhaps the speaker and the deputy speaker become ex-officials on SEC with full powers as the same members. That way, we don't have to subject our speakers to this kind of election. 5 years ago, it was the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga against Honorable Persis Namuganza. Now we're in with a different speaker being confronted again.
All right. Major Awich, these are long-standing contestations that we shall see even after this latest episode. But I would like to address, there is the tendency for common ground to be sought and not allowing for the full democratic process to happen. The tendency to ask people to step down for others on account of either the need not to put whoever is favored in bad stead. Shouldn't the process be left to play out naturally and as democratically as possible? Why does the NRM, or why do members within the party assume that others must step down for them?
Thank you so much. I will squarely answer that, but let me throw light on what my junior old boy has said. About the issue of the feeling that a senior should go and versus the junior, is that it is encompassed in the constitution of the party, the rights of a member. You see, NRM, as I've always said, is a mass party. A mass party in that if you meet minimum qualification, you become a member. There are some parties which are not mass party, like the Chinese Communist Party. You have 1.5 billion Chinese, but only 90 million are members. Chinese die fighting to be a party member, and they get the card at 80 years or 75. That's when you become a party member. So you can see that the Communist Party of China is not a mass party. The NRM is a mass party. So therefore, being a mass party, you have what you call rights of a member. And here the rights provided, once you join, you have equal rights, including the right to vote and the right to be voted. Now, and that is why it sets issues of seniority versus juniority. Now, some of us who have come through the army, NRA, it doesn't take us by surprise, because we have seen, even in the past in the army, where an officer joins from another fighting force, and we salute. We have seen it. We have not complained. And some have turned out to be good performers, extremely good performers. So some of us are used to that. And this is, of course, based on the rights as provided for in the Constitution. Now, on the matter that you have asked about the tendency of making people stand down as opposed to the competition, once again, the principle, the spirit is enshrined in the NRM Constitution. The Constitution says, in all matters that need decision, consensus is the first thing. So the party promotes consensus more than competitive open and also voting. Even at a constituency level, the spirit is that if you have 4 candidates for Masindi, Oima, yours is?
Hoima East.
Hoima East. The spirit in the party constitution that in Hoima East, should you have 4 aspirants, the first point of doubt is that can they sit and agree? But normally, when you see it coming full-fledged, is because that level consensus has passed. Because we all know the benefits of consensus vis-a-vis the benefits of contestation. As you contest against each other, the words that you throw, the weaknesses that you expose, the resources that you waste is used against you by the major opponent that we shall meet from another political party. So, to be specific to your question, this tendency of saying to Tule to Yogere, let's sit, we talk, is embedded in the spirit. I can't quote the particular provision, but it is there in the party constitution, where the constitution clearly provides that in all decisions being made, consensus is first. If consensus fails, then we go for voting. So don't be surprised that this talk will keep coming up and again. It's not by chance. It is an enshrined position in the party constitution.
All right, thanks for that clarity. So of course offers the needed perspective in understanding what appears to be a tradition. Now, talking about holding key demographics, we've talked about youth, women and the Teachers League. For the women's part, the conversation again goes to that particular exchange that was started by Rebecca Kadaga. There's already a women's league within the National Resistance Movement.
Yeah, the league is there provided for by the Constitution.
By the Constitution.
Yeah, the league.
That is one led by incumbent Wanyoto, Lydia.
Yeah.
But then the women's card keeps being played, especially when the battle for the first vice chairperson between the two titans. I don't know how to basically factor this in.
But the thing is, we've got 2 national vice chairpersons. The first national vice chairperson was Alhaji Honorable Moses Chigongo. And then there's a second, female. That's the one that's been held by the Right Honorable Kadaga.
How does that stand with the Women's League arrangement?
I think it's independent of the Women's League. The Women's League is a structure like the Youth League, like the PWDs. It's a structure of its own. So I don't see what the problem is having a vice chairperson female as the second vice chairperson.
No, the problem is playing the women's card.
But who is playing the women's card? These are two women against each other. These are two women competing against each other.
Played the card.
How exactly did she do that?
If I'm to quote one of the, because just a moment, because we have the paper here.
But I know what you're talking about.
But
I let my answer.
Would he, let me see, would he, she was speaking, for example, if the speaker right now were a man, would he also come to sit on the bench on behalf of women?
So the reference on that, Chris, the reference to that was that position of speaker. She was asking if the speaker was a man, would this man now come also and contest for this position because he's a speaker? Because the perception to people has been that the sitting speaker is automatically the second national vice chairperson female.
Okay.
So she was asking, that applied in her case because she was a woman, and it applies to her, to the current case because also the current speaker is female.
She's also a woman.
But she was saying, if she was trying to say that, let us disconnect the speakership from the second national vice chairperson position. Separate the two. Don't assume that because you're the speaker, you automatically become the second national vice chairperson, because it could happen that the speaker is a man, as was the case when the late Honorable Jacob Olanya. Because now would the late Jacob Olanya come and contest in this position?
No.
That was the question that she was posing. But so I think that's a bit clear. It wasn't about playing the women's card. I think the women's card is really clear. They have that position. It's a female national vice chairperson, and I think that's the position it's going to be, unless I could be corrected. But for me, I think that's how it should stay. How it should stay. But also before
he knows something.
Yeah, Major, just quickly before Major comes in, the consensus issue. I just want to add on to that. For me, I think that's a doctrine that has got to be maintained in the NRM. If you can find consensus, the better, because these democratic processes have an after effect on the party. Anywhere, not just in the NRM.
I'll be asking you a little bit later, the after effect of the country, because you could be acting as a national resistance movement, but by virtue of being the governing party, that has a way it will slip into the state because you are the administrator. Now, bringing consensus away from the governing party and introducing it into statehood might pose a problem for the republic. That's a question we shall answer a little bit later. What do you know about the women?
On this matter, I really don't differ much, but maybe to give the historical context, which was carried in the constitution making itself for the party, or even to an amendment. I'm trying to reconcile my mind. Because when this constitution was drafted, the party constitution, I was there, because by then I was on a secondment from the army to the then NRM. Remember, the then NRM was for everybody before a referendum was held. So when the referendum was held that go multi-party, the other NRM then played a role in the doing work or activities that led into the formation of the current one, including drafting the constitution. By then I was in legal department, and my director was Uguli Margaret, who became a judge, and the deputy was Zamzam. Now, in the constitution making, women, I think, came in even an amendment. The women said, in the leadership per se, okay, when you have the chair and the vice chair and the regional vice chair, remember the diction used in the regional vice chair is national vice chair, particular region. Remember, national vice chair, particular region. Now, this is why some people ask, if I'm chair for Western, why should the North and Karamoja vote for me? Why can't the Western vote? The issue is that position you hold is a national vice position, only that you hail from. So now the women argued that if we are going to have chair, deputy, vice chair, and regional chair, in the spirit of the constitution, which provides some quota for leadership or in composition for women, the women advocated that let's create a vice chair for women. You can have your first vice, you can have your region, you can have what, but we want one for vice chair. So the debate was right in the constitution making. Now, in a NEC, I was there. I was there in NEC. What Right Honorable Kadaga was saying, that, like he said, that people seem to think this position is for a speaker. No, the spirit in the drafting of the constitution, the creation of this position, the spirit was not for the speaker. It was for a woman. Okay? And therefore, for members who think it is for a speaker, she was making it clear that the women, including herself, that we lobbied to create at the chair position, that you can have all these deputy chairs, but please save one for women. So that is the background. I just wanted to add that background.
Thank you very much. We need to cover a little bit of ground, especially with regard to our talking points this morning. There is the influence of finances in the run-up to the CEC elections on Thursday. This one points the spotlight on the Entrepreneurs League. There is a battle between Hassan Basajabalawa and King Caesar Mulenga. Of course, this battle also has the likes of Philip Kakuru and some other contestants. But right now, what we are seeing is what appears to be a two-horse race. The employ of money in elections is not unique to the national resistance movement. This is a national issue, and many of us are asking that maybe it's about time that we look at reforming our election and political processes to ensure that we lessen the connotation of coin in our politics. What do you make of what's happening within CEC, within the current political contestation with regard to money?
I want to ask you, Chris, how do you separate money from politics? In mature democracies, more mature democracies than our very own, we just witnessed the just concluded USA election.
That's right.
The cornerstone of that election is how much money you can bring to the table in terms of fundraising.
There is need for caps.
Well, there is a cap, yes, but my point is, you look at the Democrats go out, and one of the key reasons why Kamala Harris, the then vice president, got the ticket for the Democratic Party was her capability, the war chest that she had ready for the election. That put her way above other potential candidates, the Gavin Newsoms and the others, because she had the capacity to mobilize resources. You can't run an election without funds. You need money. So you can't separate the two. The issue is how the funds are used, and that's what should be the main focus of discussion generally in this period. So the race for the Entrepreneurs League, yes, and the president guided again on Saturday, because this issue was raised on the floor, including Philip Kakuru himself raised it and questioned the delegates who were out of the country or something.
Being taken to Nairobi, having a good time, and then return to vote.
And one of the delegates rightly put it that that's simply hearsay. The Attorney General was consulted, and he guided that we can open an investigation into this issue while the elections proceed, because we have a timeline right now to meet. We have to get out of this primary election this week, so the rest of us who have flags can actually get back to trying to mobilize support for our party in our respective constituencies.
That's right.
So we cannot wait to have an investigation. We can't postpone these elections. Let us have an investigation carried out concurrently as the election proceeds. And the president guided, if there is any evidence and anyone is found guilty, they will simply be disqualified. So I think we shouldn't waste too much time focusing on this issue. I think now the president has guided, there's investigations that are going to be carried out. We proceed, the voting starts today for the special interest groups. This morning, there will be at Kololo voting, including the Entrepreneurs League. So I think maybe there are some valid concerns somewhere. I do not have the details. I don't belong to the Entrepreneurs League, so I will not be voting in the special interest groups elections this week. Mine was done on Saturday. I'll vote again later on in the week. But what we need to focus on is not necessarily eliminating money out of elections, because you cannot run an election.
No, we can't eliminate
funds.
it out, but we need caps, we need guidance and reforms.
Should we have caps?
That allows, fundraising caps, for example. There are people who can donate billions, and that could completely ensure opponents cannot even compete.
My question to that is, if Chris, you go out and mobilize 1 billion and I go out and mobilize 10 billion, that speaks to my ability as a mobilizer. That's my strength, and that's what gives my party the advantage or gives me as an individual the advantage over my opponent.
I'm glad you say, but that would be looking at it from a very simplistic perspective. What that does is that it increases the influence, which might be detrimental to the politics of the day by the lobbyists, the lobby groups.
As my senior comes into
people have interests.
I happen to be a political student, and for me the key maxim that guides me is realism versus idealism. In reality, these are things that we have to deal with. In an idealistic world, Chris, what you're saying makes sense. But in reality, that's not how politics operates. So if I go out there and I know I have to cover entire nation, to, for example, for the presidential race where you have to go national, you need funds. So your capacity to mobilize resources is very critical. So if you put a cap and say, okay, we're not going to spend more than 1 trillion shillings for the presidential election, why should you cut my legs off if for me I can go out and mobilize resources from other places?
Okay, that one is interesting, but maybe what other perspective you should help offer us is how much money should be used, especially in tilting the balance among the electorate, because people bribe, you know?
Well, once again, I don't differ so much with my junior old boy here. But I think the issue in money in election is even clearly spelled out in the election laws. It's a crime to bribe. It is somewhere hanging in the election laws. Inducement.
Buying of votes.
Yes, inducement is a crime. Therefore, the money that is in issue that needs a resolution is not total money per se. For example, if you raise money to advertise on NTV, if you raise money for your fuel to move in the villages of Karamoja, if you raise money to put as much posters as possible, that is not an issue. The issue here is, for example, we have even gone to the extreme, like, it's not enough to talk to a group of people who have come to listen to you, and you say, there's what I've left with Martin or with Peter. Now, people line up and get money. You saw a minister from Busoga.
That is right.
Not only did he give his agent to give, but that is it. So the direct exchange of money for buying votes is what is in issue. That the amount of money that you use in logistical arrangement for the campaign is not an issue. But even in the law, there's even a limitation, I think a clear limitation for cap, for the amount maybe got from outside, or even prohibition of getting from outside to what the law calls hostile countries. So there's even a prohibition. So you can see that the money is well tackled in the law with clear prohibitions where to get from outside and how much to get. But even here, prohibition is there inside. But we have continued to see and see. Like the entrepreneurs who are crying. We hear that at one time, yes, because all of them are victims. You hear one candidate started by giving $100 each. I asked him myself, because he came to my office, I said there's a query about this.
So how many are the delegates? 21,000?
For example, you go to Kidgum, even where there's no forex in Kidgum to exchange dollars.
People were getting dollars.
But you pay in the dollars. In Kidgum, in Agago where there's no forex. Now, I asked him, I said, how about this, that clear giving of money? How do you explain it? He said, but when we raise for the party, how comes you don't ask?
You don't ask those questions.
You don't ask. I said, fine, where it is. But I think my feeling and the feeling of the party is that clear bribing procedures should be stopped. To the extent that even if it means a law being strengthened to criminalize both the receiver and the offerer, because in this case, the law seems to look at the offerer than the receiver. So we need clear prohibition, like we have done with outside. So it's a worrying trend. Because in the process, we at one time will have to evaluate to what extent the effect of bribing voters has on the quality of the candidates or even on the competence of parliament. I think research will prove that there's a direct linkage in the quality and the competency.
All right. Many thanks, retired Major Paula Awich and Mr. Kadaga, the one contesting for Hoima East on the NRM ticket. It's a pleasure having you on board. We now have to go live to Kololo, where our very own Daniel Kibet is going to be bringing us the updates on how the party top persons will be deciding on exactly who gets to vote on Thursday. A very good morning, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Chris Higenyi, and indeed our viewers of Morning at NTV. I'm Daniel Kibera. We're coming to you live from Wampeo Avenue. This is a road that leads to Kololo Independence Ceremonial Grounds, which is just about 100 meters from here. And as you can see, there's a lot of jam around here. And all these are delegates. These delegates are going to Kololo Independence Grounds, and that is where they're going to hold the first conference of the National Resistance Movement as the party seeks to elect some of its top leaders to take over for the next 5 years. Of course, today's conference will focus much on the special interest groups, and the delegates have come from across the country. They are here. They were accredited yesterday, of course, at Nakawa. But today the focus will be so much to elect people of various categories that fall in the special interest group, among them the Women's League, and then we've got the Youth League, the Elderly League, we have the Entrepreneurs League, we have the Veterans League, the people with disabilities, and so many more. And each of those special organs have 10 elective positions in them. For instance, if it is the position of maybe, or if it is the League of Women's League, we've got vice chairpersons who will be elected from the 5 regions of Uganda, that is Eastern Region, Central Region, Western Region, Northern Region, and of course, all that will be happening today. And then we've got the Secretary General there. But of course, this election comes at a time when NRM is under criticism, especially the candidates who are taking part in today's election, because issues have come up in as far as hiding of delegates is concerned. This is an issue that has been spoken or has been raised by some of the candidates, but also the party officials. The Secretary General, that is Tanga Odoi, spoke, that is Richard Todwong talked about it the other day, and then yesterday in a press conference we had the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of the NRM, Dr. Tanga Odoi, speaking about it and warning candidates against hiding delegates. Why is this being done? Well, it is being done so that other candidates might disadvantage their competitors from accessing and speaking to delegates. It's a big game, and everybody is trying to pull out their important or tricks that they believe will work out for them, and that is what we saw yesterday, because some of the candidates have pulled out of the race because they consider it unfair. And I'll give you a case in point is Sanjay Tana, who was contesting for the position of the chairperson of the Entrepreneurship League of the NRM, but he told us yesterday that he pulled out because some of the candidates he's contesting alongside with are hiding delegates. Some of the delegates were told were taken to even as far as Kenya and Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and others reportedly were taken to Rwanda. Of course, those are allegations. We cannot justify them, but if the party actually said they are hearing rumors about it, and the action that is going to be taken is that the candidates could be dismissed even as early as today, or even shortly before the polls are done. This is a matter that we are following closely, but later we'll be definitely updating you in our subsequent bulletins, NTV at 1, NTV Akaongezi, and of course NTV Tonight. Higenyi, back to you.
Right here in the studio, the discussion is, well, very lively, especially on aspects of what the National Resistance Movement can do pretty well in order not to fall into the pitfalls of a bad public relations affairs. Many thanks, Daniel Kibet, for bringing us up to speed. We shall be, of course, waiting from to hear from you a little bit later in our subsequent bulletins, NTV at 1, as well as NTV Akaongezi and NTV Tonight. For now, though, Please be on to the news gathering. Let me return to the studio and allow my guests to wrap this conversation up. Let me begin with the junior. The national, okay, no doubt. The national resistance movement right now stands at a very critical phase, especially when it comes to its evolution. The old guard, the new guard, but also the contestation of power is something that should not let out the ugly. Someone asked, the center seems not to hold. Can it?
Two things. I don't want to sound alarmist. I think the NRM party is very strong.
Okay.
What we need to do is consolidate. I like the slogan that we're going with this time around. Protecting the gains, yeah. Well, what we need is to consolidate. Now, the question of transition is inevitable. It has to be had. We, the young leaders, are also coming up now. We have been mentored long enough that we want to make our contribution. But for me, two things, Chris. We missed an opportunity on Saturday as delegates of the NEC. We spent a lot of emotion and time on the question of the second national vice chairperson. I thought there were other issues that needed us to shine a spotlight on. For example, the contestation of the regional vice chairpersons. Major Paula here says that these are national leaders. It's only that they are coming from different regions. I slightly differ. I think moving forward, we need to say that we have two national vice chairpersons who cover the entire country. Now, these 6 regional ones, their emphasis and energy should be on those regions where they're coming from. For example, the current Western Vice Chairperson, I never saw this person for 5 years. You know what I mean? So that shows that there's a gap as a party. These national vice chairpersons, regional, should be representing that region. They should be campaigning to delegates from those regions. For my case in the West, we should be campaigning in Ankole, in Bunyoro, in Toro, in Rwenzori, in Chigezi. And those same delegates should be the only ones voting. Because you're the ones who know the challenges of the NRM in that region. Someone in Karamoja will not understand what's in Bunyoro. Then just 2 other things, what we also missed on. An amendment, we should have made proposals to have, for example, the speaker and speaker, or a deputy speaker, automatically sit on the SEC. This would separate, because you can't have someone, a minister, an MP, a speaker, holding 5 different portfolios also in the SEC. So we separate the SEC like we did with the separation of the Secretary General when Right Honorable Mama Mbabazi left. When Honorable Kasule Lumumba came in, she was strictly a Secretary General. Her focus was to build the party. So we need that separation. And lastly, I won't walk away without asking the delegates out there to vote for Honorable Asimwe Jonad for Western Vice Chairperson and Mr. Calvin Echodu for the Eastern. And that is a new breed of leaders. This is the transition we're talking about.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonah Byakutaga. Major.
Can the center still hold? The center here, I guess, is more referring, first of all, to President Museveni. And of course, by implication, the institution at the center, that is the SEC. I like to assure Ugandans and the party members of NRM that the center can still hold, and very firmly. Reason being, by the demonstrated strength of how President Museveni has handled things in the past. Did you know, Mr. Gage, that Museveni's nature is that his head works best in challenging situations? Do you know that boring situation bores him? But where there's a challenge, it works best.
All right.
So that demonstrated statecraft. Relax. This will be sorted. There was a time we used to have, say, university professors on strike. And for us who had grown in the army, we had a feeling, Muse and Apang, that he will handle. And you will see him coming up with clear solutions. Okay. And then also the other thing to show you that the center will hold is that we have well-built institutions. So institutionally, the institutions function. Even if at democratic level, it doesn't, it appears like this debate, but institutions function. So the demonstrated strength of Museveni in many aspects, where his brain works best at challenging situations.
All right.
We are good, the center holds.
If for retired Major Paula Winch's words are anything to go by, please, Ugandans, challenge President Museveni a little bit more. That is when he works best. Many thanks, gentlemen, for coming on board. Let's now go to Stephen Mbide, who is on